Yo, what is up, YouTube? Baser Binges here, back again with another video. Apologies out about my previous oral video. I did discover some misinformation, and I don't want to spread misinformation to all my channel. And instead of trying to put a pinned comment that nobody's going to read, I decided to rescrap the entire video and turn it into this one. So this video is going to be covering should you summon for Silverwolf and Luocha. So we're going to be talking about their kits, their strengths and weaknesses, potential team ideas, and their usage going forward in the meta. So if you like this sort of content, like, comment, subscribe. Really helps out the algorithm with my channel. But trying to get a lot more Honkai Star Rail content because I really enjoy this game. And we do also stream on our Twitch channel pretty much every single day for like 8 hours a day almost. So you guys can see our lovely chat in the bottom left-hand corner, twitch.tv/razorninjas. Would love to see you guys here. If you have any questions regarding this video, you can pretty much always reach out to me on my Twitch channel. Without further ado, let's get started into Silverwolf. So, going into Silverwolf, she's been a character that's been very much hyped by the Honkai Star Rail community, particularly before her release, and even after she got a nerf to her kit during the change from CBT 3 and to the final release of the game. But I still think she's kind of iffy in terms of character design, and let me try to explain why I think that way. So, mostly energy, everything else in stats are mostly about average, so I don't want to care what I cover with that. But the main part of Silverwolf's kit that I think is important to discuss is her skill. So everyone talks about how good this skill is and the ability to essentially implant a weakness, a new weakness on an enemy of a given ally and say, oh my gosh, this is going to change and revolutionize everything. But there are a few big problems that many people forget to discuss, so let me bring those up right now. So essentially, the 85% base chance at level 10 can still miss. A lot of enemies in the late Memory of Chaos will have a very high effect resistance. So unless you build a very good amount of effect hit or roll for Silverwolf's E2, it will be very hard to even hit the weakness on the enemy in the first place. So you could just use your skill to do absolutely nothing, which would really suck. On top of that, the weakness implant. So this is part of misinformation I had from my very first video, which I took down. So the misinformation is that in my original video, I thought this sentence, if the enemy has already triggered that type's weakness, the resistance does not trigger, the defense damage res reduction does not trigger. Sorry about that. And so what actually happens after testing 2 hours in the tutorial is that Silverwolf will always prioritize an element that does not exist on the enemy. So for example, if the enemy is weak to Quantum, you can bring Silverwolf and 3 ice characters, and Silverwolf will always apply the ice weakness to the enemy. Does that make her better? Yes. Does that make her broken, like everyone thinks? No, because now you still have to reorient your entire team around Silverwolf, disregarding any good character to fit in this niche, which I don't think is going to be that good for a lot of people, especially considering the lack of good lineups that most free-to-play players are going to have. And there's going to be some really good combos, especially when we go and talk about Luocha, that you really can't run unless the situation is very specific for Silverwolf. So this is why I'm very hesitant on saying Silverwolf is good, especially going forward, because as future characters go forward, there will be great synergies with other characters that just won't work together with Silverwolf. And so by running Silverwolf, you kind of limit your team design strategies, and it just doesn't make things good for a very slight buff that you'll get on the enemy, considering that we already have Pella in the game. So that was pretty much the main reasons I discussed this skill. I think the skill is just very overrated, and everyone talks about how strong weakness implanting is, but overall, I think it's probably just a better idea in the long term to roll for strong DPSs, get a good lineup of strong DPS characters, whether it be 4 stars or 5 stars, and trust me, we are going to get a lot of very good 5-star DPSs coming out, whether that's Jinglu, whether that's Blade, whether that's a Daniel, or Dan Hung, the 5-star Dan. We're going to get a lot of DPSs coming out, and rolling for Silverwolf, I feel, is just going to feel like a lot of waste, especially even in the future. So I'm really iffy on this character. Is she going to be good? Yeah, I think she'll be okay if you like her anyway, but I think she's a little bit weak in my opinion, especially compared to what's coming up soon. Finally, we have her ult. The ult reduces defense, which is cool. and then deals damage. Again, this is all single target, so if you're fighting a whole bunch of enemies, like 2 big guys, this is not really going to be that amazing compared to Pella, who does the same thing, except it's AoE, and Pella has a lot more energy regeneration than Silverwolf does. So I think overall, I think it's just like an okay ability. So in the long term, I know I'm just downplaying this character, but everyone talks about how good this character is, and I think there needs to be a little bit of a dissenting opinion. And finally, we have her bugs, which are the attack, defense, and speed reduction. And overall, I think the only good one in the long term is the defense reduction. And even then, the base chance to hit it is very small, so it's going to be hard unless you build her on a lot of effect resistance or effect hit chance, or run the light cone, either whether that's the whale light cone, the 5-star, or the free to play one from the event that you run on her. For the reasons where attack percent is not really going to protect your allies from dying for the most part, and speed down is okay, but it's not going to affect the memory of chaos round timer. So you're still kind of in the awkward position of, oh crap, the round's about to end and I can't get enough damage in. So overall, I think Silverwolf. I know I'm saying a lot of negative things about Silverwolf, but I think I want to be the dissenting opinion about Silverwolf, because since everyone's talking about how good she is, I think she will be a good character if you want to run her with Sela, especially with the Quantum set. I do think that'll be quite a strong ability, but I think if you're trying to imagine her without a mono Quantum team, trying to fit her in other sort of DPS teams, like an ice team or a imaginary team, is going to be quite weak, because there's a good chance you're just not going to be able to do anything with her skill for a bit. And even then, it's only on one enemy. So if there's 2 strong enemies like there are in the current Memory of Chaos implementation, it's not going to be very good. So finally, we have her Eidolon, her traces, increases debuffs or whatever. They'll just stat increases. They're not really that amazing. Increase extra turn on the weakness down, deals extra damage, and then her Eidolons increase extra damage. So overall, I think Silverwolf is going to be a good character, and we do have our own tier list if you guys were interested in checking it out. I do think Silverwolf is an A+. I do think she's pretty all right, but you need a lot of whale setup. A lot of the mono teams also you need right now are mainly geared towards whaling, having 3 5-stars, and it's all just like, oh gosh, this is very unaffordable, especially, it's even if you don't have Sela, it's very bad either. So like the Quantum team, so it's like there's a lot of hesitancy of why I'm wanting to rate Silverwolf even this high. So, but and on top of that, her light cone, it just gives her more damage, and effect hit rates. Like, okay, whatever, nothing about her buffs. And then, but besides the ether code, I do think ether code will be kind of good. But other than that, So, but next we have Luocha. And man, oh man, does this character, I think, going to scale really well in future contents in this game. Like, oh my gosh. Luocha, I already have an insane combo coming up, and that is actually going to be Luocha plus Clara. Clara has some very good synergies with Luocha with the follow-up attack. So let's get into Luocha's kit before I go rant about that even further. So Luocha's skill, if you guys have never seen the live stream before, he uses his skill like very similar to Natasha. He will heal an ally, and if you have his trace, he will also cleanse a debuff on the character. And if the ally is less than 50%, unlike Natasha, who can only heal herself in that situation, Luocha will be able to heal any ally, and this is re-triggered after 2 turns, which is pretty easy because you're basically going to be doing a lot of basic attack spamming on this character. And then his ult is mainly just used to stack his Abyss Flower buff again, so the skill and the ult stack Abyss Flower, and his ult also removes a buff from all enemies. Going to be amazing against all those annoying Mara enemies that revive. Going to be amazing against all those mechs that give themselves self buffs. The fat one and the chainsaw guy all have the buffs as well. It's going to be very nice to remove those buffs. And then finally, we have the talent, which is the Abyss Flower. So again, you need 2 stacks to activate Abyss Flower. You get 1 from the skill, you get 1 from the ult, so you can use the skill twice. And the auto one also counts as the Abyss Flower stack. And then once you have the Abyss Flower, any enemy that is attacked by an ally will heal based off of Luocha's attack. And this lasts for 2 turns. This lasts for 2 of Luocha's turns. So what you can do is you can run characters that can sort of cheese this attack multiple times, and that's specifically why Clara is very good. So what ends up happening is that you have the field up, you go Tasukete Suvarogu, get the taunt on Clara, enemy attacks Clara, takes damage, and then Suvagorugu is like, "Stay back, Clara," and then Biden blasts the enemy, and this results in Clara getting a heal back to full. And then on top of that, with a future trace that Luocha has, he's actually able to give the entire team a small heal all over again. So it turns Clara into this sort of tank DPS engine that can also AoE the entire party and also cause your squishier characters like Pella and Sela to not get hit at all. And it keeps things very, very nice in sort of like a loop. And that's why Clara and Luocha have just this insane synergy, because essentially you can turn this turn of Abyss Flower or a bit into like a 4-5 hit combo, and Clara will never die. One of the biggest problems with Clara is that she's very squishy, since sometimes be squishy even with Svarog's ult. But by using the Abyss Flower, you can kind of keep Clara up insanely high uptime and keep her constantly using her ult. So I do think these two characters, if you have Clara, which is an insane pickup, but he's obviously going to be an insane pickup with Blade, who has his self damage dealing abilities. So Luocha will be able to heal Blade over again, and there's a whole bunch of other destruction characters that are coming out that consume HP, and I think Luocha is going to be absolutely amazing with these characters. So even if you have Bailu, even if you have Gepard, I do think Luocha is still a character you guys should consider going forward. The one weakness that Luocha does have is his potential squishiness going forward. But overall, I think that may not be as much of an issue as I do think it will be, especially given his light cone. If you get light cones or whatever in other stacks. So, but yeah. So finally, we have his traces again. What I talked about earlier. When an enemy gets hit while during the Abyss Flower field, all allies do get a tinier heal to their health, to their HP. It's not as obviously big as it hitting the enemy directly, but it is still helps just to charge out the characters that don't attack, potentially Harmony characters like Ting Young that don't really attack as often, or Bronya can get healing as well. And then traces our attack, obviously, to boost his healing. And then here's the debuff cleanse that I talked about. And then also he has a chance to resist crowd control debuffs. So essentially, he's not going to get hit by, a freeze, by Cacolia, or he ain't gonna get dominated. Unfortunately, Auto XP is taken by Colin XP. So he's not gonna get seduced by dominated by Kafka. Unfortunately, he's a taken man, So thankfully, so you don't have to worry about, unlike Natasha, you don't have to worry about Auto XP or Luocha getting dominated or having to use a skill on himself. So it's not like an amazing trace by itself, but it will be very useful when it does come up. And then finally we have his Eidolons, and I didn't really talk about Luocha's Silverwolf's Eidolons, because all they did for the most part was increase Silverwolf's own personal damage, and that's not interesting. But my god, like Luocha's Eidolons, I know this is mainly for whales, so I'll have to people are going to like shut their ears, but E1 and E6 are freaking crazy. Like an AoE attack buff by 20% is already nuts, and you can keep this field on very high uptime, by the way. And then his ult is pretty much just Silverwolf's entire kit. So it has a 100% fixed chance. So the difference between fixed chance and base chance is that base chance is actually affected by effect hit rate and effect resistance. However, a fixed chance is always going to be that chance. You cannot resist it. It will always happen, especially if it's a 100% fixed chance. Another character with fixed chance that you guys may have is Yanqing with his talent. It has a 65 chance, I believe, to do an automatic follow-up attack with a base chance to freeze. So the 65% chance will always be 65. However, the 55, I think, percent chance to freeze is dependent on the effect hit rate and the effect resistance of the enemies. But essentially, the resistance type -20 is very similar to hitting an enemy with a weakness. So when you hit an enemy with a weakness, they go from 20 resistance generally, unless stated otherwise, to 0. So this pretty much allows Luocha to effectively have any character super effective against any other character and other enemy in the game, just minus the toughness reducing part. So if you are whaling, if you do really like Auto XP, I do recommend saying that his E6 is probably one of the best E6s in the game. I will not I'm trying not to over exaggerate this, but given all the E6s we have, this is probably the best one. Finally, we have his light cone, the signature light cone, the Echoes of the Offering. I don't think this light cone is necessarily that amazing. it's just a stat increase and helps spam his ult faster, which helps getting the higher uptime on the Abyss Flower. However, I do think there are other great options like Quid Pro Crow, which is like the free light cone you can buy in the Forgotten Hall shop. You also have the Natasha light cone, which is not generally amazing, but it does give him more energy regeneration for his ult. Or you have the shared memory, which is the Clara. If I can just pull it up, actually, it might just be better that way. We have the shared memory, which is the Clara and Natasha light cone. This will be actually really good too, because not only can you manually use your skill and gain energy for all allies, but you can also use the auto skill when your ally is below 50% HP. So you can automatically use the skill, and it will also trigger this ability. So there's a whole bunch of good light cones for him, but so don't worry about getting his signature 5-star light cone. That is fine. And but yeah, so again, I know there's a lot of ranting, but those are going to be my 2 opinions on the characters. If I had to say what you want to summon for Luocha or Soulwolf, I'm sure you guys could probably tell from the tone of what I talk about. I think Luocha is an absolute must summon, in my opinion. He has, especially if you plan on rolling Blade, especially if you have Clara, it's a no-brainer. This character is very, very strong, and having the active heal over the current healers is just so much better than Bailu, and the buff removal will be good, and the debuff cleanse is good. It just does everything great, and I'm very, very excited for people to roll for him, and especially getting Yukong as well, because Yukong is going to be a very, very good character with Luocha, and I will explain hopefully in my next video. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed listening to me rant about this for about 15 minutes, 16 minutes, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.